Go where your best prayers take you, unclench the fists of your spirit and take it easy. Breathe deeply of the glad air and live one day at a time. Know that you are precious and learn to trust. Amen. Well, good morning to all of you. It is great to see you. For those visiting, a warm welcome this morning, especially if this is your first time at St. John's and with our community of faith. To give you a heads up, about half of us are not here because they were out at Lakeshore Park this morning. We have a summer service that begins at 9 with bluegrass and dogs and some fun. And some of you kind of mingle between the two. There was a guy that looked just like Tom Cruise, great looking, shorts. It wasn't Tom, it was actually Tom Rasnick. He just cruised back in from doing the service out there. So he's out there with you all this morning. So if you see a guy who looks like Tom Cruise, just say hello, Tom. It'll work. But anyway, so it's great to see all of you this morning. And yes, I have a raspy voice that I've had for about 3 weeks. I think moving to Arizona would probably cure it, but I don't want to do that. My wife is happy because I'm mostly without a voice. She's been really happy, so I guess she'll suffer with me. You know, this is such a beautiful space to be in, is it not? And I really want you to slow down for just a second with me and sit comfortably if you can do that in these pews, these beautiful refinished pews. But sit comfortably for a second, take a couple of breaths, and I mean really do this. Look around. Look at the walls, the depth and the length of this beautiful space. Don't look at me. If you're looking at me, you're not doing what I asked you to do. I mean, look at the walls. Look up at the high, that clear story area above. Some of the ancient Celtic ways that they understood the Trinity and God are painted up there, as well as Ionic crosses. The arched beauty of this place. It is a lovely, magnificent space to be in. And then look at the windows. I mean, could you ever be tired of looking at this resurrected Jesus behind the altar? Or it's fabulous. I get to watch and look at this beautiful stained glass behind you. And that rose window from England that we put in back in the 80s. And the sisters' window to my left and to your right. It just is never ending to look around. The beauty, the depth, the symbolic nature of this place. To really get in touch with that. To slow down and be aware enough to be in touch with where you are. And then take a thought about yourself for a moment. How are you this morning? Are you relaxed? Has the engine slowed down a bit? The hamster wheel slowed down with all those ideas and thoughts, to-do lists, anxieties, worries. The list is endless. Are you able to let that rest? And how do you feel? Some of you, aches, pains, the nagging something of an illness, or are things okay? And can you relax? Can you let some of that go when you sit here? Can you let it go a bit? Those things that are always with us but distracting us. We are the most distracted society ever. Growing ever more distracted from ourselves and the very presence of people, but also the spaces we are in. That small exercise is not uncommon to you, is it? Many of you meditate, pray. What we just did was a bit of spiritual awareness. A small bit of spiritual awareness. Before you run off and do something, you pay attention to yourself. Deeply inside yourself. You look into yourself before you look beyond yourself. And isn't that really, I hope, really why you're here this morning? To set aside some cares and anxieties and worries and weight. If you're young, you have them because you have a device attached to you. Maybe it's under your skin these days. I don't know what they're doing with the iPhones, but it's constantly with you. and it brings other things to you. Maybe you're not accounting for how much that actually weighs on you. But we all have that weight. It is difficult in 2021 to do spiritual awareness. It is difficult to find that place where we invite God into a space, that God that you want and need and I want and need. And I hope this morning, if you do anything for these few minutes, you will accomplish that task. That you'll find a God space, a God presence, in some way that allows us then to move beyond God then to this journey that you and I have with the Messiah, Jesus, the Messiah. Especially today as we join him in this most familiar story. I bet many of you have heard it hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of times. This story of Jesus on a hillside feeding the crowds who come to him because they are so hungry spiritually that they need him. And they are doing, by the way, what you and I are doing. You see, in all their trials and tribulations, their busy and difficult lives, they are trying to create some space for God, some spiritual space so that their lives begin to make sense again, that the rhythms come to some place that makes sense, that actually keep you alive, that actually give you some deep sense of peace. So they're out to see Jesus. And what's the story say? Did you hear it? They come out because they believe the miracles are a sign that he actually is the Messiah. He really is the Messiah. And what does Jesus do? Well, don't miss it. This story is a bit obscure, a little less than the other tellings of this same story. But Jesus always starts with what? The spiritual dimension. This is not a clinic. They have not come to a food pantry. I'm not putting that down. Let's get the order correct. Jesus always starts with the spiritual. He always starts with spiritual awareness for the people around him, trying to take them into a God space, into a God place. And this morning, he does all of that for these people, I'm assuming, and then he takes them to another step. The step that you and I need to take on a regular basis, but I wonder how often we take it. And that is the step from spiritual awareness to spiritual attentiveness. Spiritual attentiveness. From being aware to becoming attentive. Because you see, when we become attentive, what happens? We move beyond what can be selfish spirituality, which is about me, which is most of our society, by the way. Spirituality is great, but there are mega doses of it that are just about one person. That is not following a Messiah. I'm not sure what that is, but that's not following Jesus. Attentiveness is required if we are to pay attention to the very people around us. So this morning, did you do that? When you looked at the space, did you see the people near you, beyond you, people you know, people you do not know? Pay any attention to them? That's what Jesus draws us to. So these people, you see, once that they're in this place, what happens? They find out they're not only spiritually hungry, they are physically hungry, aren't they? But it arises from that paying attention. And Jesus performs a miracle. There is no doubt about it. The fathers, the mothers of our faith believe that there was something powerful that happened that day that was almost inexplicable. He takes bread and fish. He does something that we don't even understand. He blesses them, and then something happens. Now, I promise you, he didn't pull up an 18-wheeler from Second Harvest Food Bank. That is not what he did. You might think so. Okay. I'm not sure what he did, but whatever multiplication he performed, it took a life of its own through the people around him. So a second miracle happened. These people absolutely moved from this bit of awareness to attentiveness by caring for one another. They began to share what they had, to pay attention to what other people needed. Their presence was formed by the presence of others around them. And that's how it works. I know this is a little old school and not normally the way I preach, so go with me to old school. Our journey is to move from awareness that is wonderful to Christian attentiveness, which is powerful. And that gets us to our true spiritual Trinity, because every one of you have it in your own journey. It's the Trinity of a relationship with God, and in the beauty of Anglican worship, and I really do prize this, the second part of the Trinity is a relationship with yourself. And that sounds silly because half of us don't have one. We don't know who we are. We don't know what we stand for. We have no idea how we feel half the time or where we're going. Let's be honest. We are terribly distracted people. Any of you know me know I'm preaching first to myself. That's how it works. But the third part of this Trinity is then some relationship with the people around us. And when that happens, you understand the Trinity is formed. It is a true Trinity, the one we say we believe, the one we say we want to practice. And then maybe, just maybe, we will serve and love those as Jesus served and loved the people he was trying to love and serve. And man, when we're in that place, that is a God space. That's not just a concept. You see, when we're in that place, God moves from being distant and far away to being personal and close, and walking somehow, metaphorically, with you and with me all the time, in every moment of our day. The good things, the bad things, the things that aren't so good, things that aren't so bad. I don't know all of it. Just when I'm bored, when I'm not thinking about things, God is present. And in that living presence, I promise you, we witness miracles. And I witness them every day because I watch you. Miracles are simply ordinary people doing extraordinary things in ordinary ways. That's all it is. That's all it is. And I see it every day, and actually, you see it every day. Our job is to be reminded of it, share it, tell it, pat each other on the back, and encourage it. That's what happened on a hillside 2,000 years ago when 4,000 people were fed by the generosity and miraculous open-heartedness of the people listening to the Messiah of the world. Isn't it true that when we witness a miracle, see it, and Lord gracious, when we're able to participate in it, it opens our hearts and our minds with new possibilities and new life? How could it not be? Every time you see one, there is something new happening for you. It is that simple. I'm not going to distract you with a story. You know why? I want the story to be you. Your story. Your story. Your relationship with God. Your walk. What you see. What you can be open-hearted about. That's what this gospel invites us to today. You see, when we are open and receive, and we can do that on that day, maybe this day, then new life comes. New life. And the promise is that new life comes every day. Right now. Amen.